We're joined in the studio this morning with four young folks here in Minden. I'm going to let y'all introduce yourselves.
I'm Lily Spillers, and I'm from Minden High School.
I'm Faith Earnhardt, and I'm from Glenbrook.
And I'm Frances Robinson, and I go to Lakeside.
I'm Haynes Mandino, and I'm from Minden High School.
You're the loudest of the bunch, too, obviously. Well, you guys are part of a group called Next Generation, so who wants to draw the short straw and sort of tell us a little bit about who you guys are and what you guys are doing?
These group, us four kids, have decided that our generation is going to continue to try and support this auction and continue to try and grow it, and with our changing society. And we think that our generation has a lot of qualities. Us as young people can continue throughout our lives and continue to come back to Minden to give people the same emotion and the same atmosphere at this auction that we grew up with, to help kids with cancer and continue to help families throughout our community.
And you guys, most of you, I've watched all of you guys grow up, actually, so I know you guys well, but all of you have been involved with the auction for a pretty good bit of time here. I know Haynes has, but if you could, tell me a little bit about how you guys have been involved in the auction just in the last couple of years.
I know for me, Frances and I have had a big part as far as our moms have done the St. Jude Playhouse and helped design that. And so that's been a big part of us being up there late at night and throughout the auction. So we're always sitting there ready to have our voices heard as well.
I've always been involved in the St. Jude auction, but this year, obviously, it's become a little more special. I'm now a patient of St. Jude, so this year will be a lot different and special.
My whole family's pretty much been involved in the auction since our cousin, we had Stanton Haynes, pass away at St. Jude. He was a patient, and St. Jude was so good to his family and Tina and Jeff. And when this auction started in Minden, and we've always kind of been a part of it to try and help grow it. And last year I actually got to be on the panel during Haynes Hour, and that was just really special for me, because it was the first time I really felt like I was giving back something. I was helping, just like everybody else in my family I'd watched growing up doing it.
And Frances, you're not going to get off the hook. You got to come talk.
I think just knowing that my parents and my grandparents have helped out with St. Jude.
I know this is supposed to be more like a panel than just a straight-up interview, so you guys have some questions you'd like to have answered as well, I'm assuming.
Yes, Mr. Mark. We would want to know, how long has KASO been the radio broadcasting system for the auction?
Well, the auction itself started at this radio station. They when the auction began back in 1976, they did it right here. I think the grand total was about $10,000. All the merchandise was up here, so you look around this building and see the building. Just imagine, even then, just how small this place is and how much of inventory you get and all that. And it wasn't all the time. I believe they actually took breaks and played some music, and then they'd come back and do auction. They had phone wires running everywhere, phones running everywhere to answer the phones, and they did it in the room right behind us here where Jesse's at in the KASO studio. And it got to a point where it just flat outgrew the radio station, and I think it was in 84 or 85 is when they moved it to the Civic Center, because it flat outgrew the radio station. And you have to remember, up until probably the late 70s, early 80s, there was no cable TV, so the only way you got the auction was on the radio. So we kind of helped start it. Obviously, Pete Treat was a big part behind how it got started, but the radio station was the initial avenue to get it going, and we've stuck with it ever since.
So since then, seeing how big it's grown, how has that affected you personally, just to see how big of a deal it is now compared to when you started?
Well, I've watched it. I mean, I was 2 years old about the time, or it was 2 years old about the time I was born, so I've literally grown up with the auction as well. And in the early 90s, it really kind of picked up and really took off. I know last year after the auction, I was looking for totals, trying to figure out how much money we had raised. I'll tell you in a minute. I'll keep it secret for you. But, we were looking at looking for the numbers, and you know what? The hardest problem I did looking back is it wasn't on the same date every year. It'd be in March one year, it'd be in January one year, so it bounced back and forth. And sometime in the mid to late 80s, they finally settled on Super Bowl Sunday. So that was kind of interesting to find. But personally, I've been involved with it, closely, obviously, since I started at the radio station. That was in 2000 was the first one that I really helped with. I had, brought things and donated things, and I always tell people I just donate to the auction because I never win anything. So that's always been my running joke. But I've really seen this thing take off, especially in the last, in the last 20 years, especially when I was running the numbers. And by the way, since day one, we've raised over $18 million. Wow. So that's how far it's come, from $10,000 in 1 year, and I think we've raised $11 million in the last 15.
I think that's what we are trying to do, Mark, how it's changed over the last 10 years and how it's continued to grow. And I think all four of us standing up here, and even the young people who we're trying to have voices for in our generation, we're trying to continue that growth. And I think that's why we want this next generation panel, why we want to continue this for everybody else in the community, because we want to continue raising that money and continue to make the auction grow with our changing society.
Mm-hmm. And, you think about it, guys, everybody thinks, okay, it's the St. Jude auction, but think about the other things that have come along since. You have the chili cook-off, you have the race, you have Kids Day, you've got the Playhouse, the Playhouse is actually, I guess, part of the auction, but all of the things that are around it while it's going on. And then, everybody knows the food schedule is almost set in stone. By what day, what you're going to eat for supper that night or lunch or whatever. So, those are the kind of things that I've enjoyed watch pop up. It's become more of and just almost like a festival that happens to have a fundraising aspect behind it. And that's always been a neat thing. And I'm assuming you guys are probably looking for ways you could probably start something else that would be another part of something to go along with the auction. Is that in the works? Am I putting you on the spot?
I do know for sure, on the fact that there are so many festivities during that weekend. But I know so many kids have been doing stuff throughout the years. I know Leela Margaret Miller has been doing lemonade stands and bake sales for all throughout the year. And then you have your Landon Knotts, I think. Mm-hmm. He's been doing bake sales at the auction. It's just so cool to see the younger kids doing something so small, but it becomes such a big thing at the end of the day. The
schools are really what blows me away, how much you guys do, and in Minden High's case, I know it's in an hour, but I know I'm pretty sure they're probably doing other fundraisers through the year, Glenbrook and Lakeside, all the area schools, the Minden Elementary schools, and No Central down in Deverly, same way. So you guys have grown up in that from just a school aspect as well, I would assume.
I tell you what's a big inspiration, at least for me, and I know all four of us up here have seen her sitting in the back selling her prints, but Miss Corey Lou Robinson, ever since all four of us growing up at this auction, anywhere, any time of the day or night, you can see her sitting in her chair selling her prints. Doesn't matter how many she sells, she knows that one print is enough money that she's raised to make a difference. And I think that was a big inspiration for me, because I saw how she gave her time, and she, she's been retired. She could not be up there. She could have retired from prints, but she continues to do it because she knows it's going to make a difference somewhere. Maybe not in the town. She doesn't know who it's going to make a difference for, but she knows it's going to make a difference. And I really think that was a big inspiration for me and the young people, because we see the older generation who gives up their time and is an example to us growing up. I mean, she's been there since I can remember, and I think that was a big inspiration for anybody who comes to the auction to see her sitting there.
Yeah, she's been a fixture of the auction for a long time, and complete aside, she was also my first grade teacher when I was a little boy too. So she'll tell you I was her favorite student, but she was my favorite teacher. But you're right. She really has given a lot of time to the auction, a lot of paintings. I've got a bunch of them hanging on the wall at the house. I know that. Is there anything else you guys would like to talk about as far as you want to do as far as being involved with the auction moving forward? Some things you could do to help maybe get other young folks like yourself involved?
I think the schools coming together and raising enough money to help with St. Jude. Like Lakeside, we're doing wiffle ball tournaments, dodgeball tournaments, selling food. I think just everyone coming together and helping out is just enough.
More than just what you've been doing, just the regular fundraising, just some more creative ways to. Now, have y'all in the past, and I'm asking this across the board, have y'all, has it always been usually around time for the auction when fundraising starts at the schools, or is there some year-round stuff that y'all have been doing?
I know at Glenbrook we've been doing St. Jude breakfast for the past probably month or two. Mm-hmm. And so we do it every Friday, and then I think next week it'll be every single day. And people just donate items, and we sell everything for $1. And I think a bunch of kids come because I've been there every time we do it, and there's a lot of kids, so I think we've been making good money. And then we also have, like, each class we have the coin drive, so everybody tries to beat each other. And so I know us seniors have been bringing, like, desserts, and we've been selling them to the other kids, and we've been making good money off of that. And then I know that my sister, the third grade girls, they've been making bracelets and selling them. And they've also been making pickle pops and selling them at recess.
Pickle pops?
Yes. Wow. So it's good to see the younger kids trying to get into it. We also had our St. Jude kickball tournament on Monday. I think we made really good money on that too.
That's become a thing here the last couple of years. I've heard about the kickball tournament. Bottom line is, Faith, you guys have been involved, and you really didn't know it. you guys have been doing it through the schools for a long time. What's probably let me sort of turn the table back on y'all. Y'all were interviewing me. I'll interview you again. What's kind of some of your favorite memories or favorite things that you enjoy the most about the auction?
I know for me, besides the fact that like the whole auction is just so much excitement, and seeing everybody come together throughout the community is just really inspiring to me. I know one thing that I remember so vividly is sitting at home watching the auction and having my bell sitting beside me, and I would ring it every time that they would ring it on the TV. And so that for me, and just seeing like since then how there's so many other kids that are just as encouraged as I was as a kid, and how it just keeps going. Like it hasn't stopped, it just keeps getting better. So I think that's been really encouraging.
And you think about it. Have you got any memories you'd like to share? Yeah. Francis, you need to get in front of that microphone is what I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah. Just riding in the car, like if we're not sitting in front of the TV watching the auction, we'll go sit in the car wherever we're going and listen to it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And coming up to the auction and looking at the playhouse and seeing what's for sale. Mm-hmm.
My favorite memory has been when we would be at school on Thursday and Friday. We would always beg our teachers to turn on the auction. And so we'd be sitting there doing our work, but we would still be watching the auction, and that was always fun. I would have to say that one of my favorite memories from the auction would probably have to be when Cy Robinson got to come. That is, we were, I don't know about y'all, but even me, I'm older than all of them standing up here, and I was young. And for me, that was when Duck Dynasty was big. That was when it was starting to come up. And me as a little kid, I was like, oh, this is awesome. He's here. That was a celebrity. He's from, West Monroe. He's not too far from us. Yeah. And I even got a cup signed by him and got a picture with him with my grandfather. So I think that was really special because it was just something that, somebody that influential and famous took time out of his day to come to this auction and continue to support this small town, to continue to raise money for people who can't do it for themselves.
I think probably one of my biggest memories was the first auction that I helped work with here at the radio station. 2000 was a weird year. The first part of the year we had the ice storm. In the spring we had a big tornado come through. I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember that, but it's days that live in infamy kind of deal. But anyway, the ice storm actually coincided with the beginning of the St. Jude auction that year. We were worried about actually being able to go on the air because everybody was out. The power was out for a good bit of town. The cable company had trouble with all their boxes, so a lot of folks were without cable. The head end, which is where all the cable programming comes into town, it was out, and they were like, well, we're going to have to delay the auction. And we're sitting up here going, we're running on a backup generator. they've got phone lines at the auction downtown. So we literally rigged up one of them, plugged it into the microphones, dialed up the KASO phone number, and we were on the air for the auction. We delayed the auction just to let folks get to the auction to get running it, but we ran it on the phone line for probably the first 6 hours before they finally were able to get the TV part back up. So that was my first memory, because that was my first auction to actually work on this side of it.
And Mark, I think that on the part about the radio station when the ice storm hit, I think that's what's so cool, and something that I've been continuously learning through Miss Laura Hollingsworth and so many others, is that it doesn't even matter the circumstances, as far as there's a lot of hiccups and there's a lot of mishaps, but somehow it all comes together because it's such a greater cause than we can be. Yeah,
and that's the biggest part of it. It's a collaborative effort. Everybody when you walk in, there's people that they do this group of people do this. Everybody sort of divides and conquers. And that's just the way it works. Rusty and I have worked the broadcast side of it, at least 20 years together, I would almost venture to say, but it's just a group of people coming together for a greater cause, and the results speak for themselves, especially like I mentioned, $18 million plus raised over the last 43 years now, and then 11 of that probably coming in the last 10 to 15 years. So that speaks for itself, that the dedication of the town and the dedication of people even just outside of town that come. There's people that take vacation just to come in and work the auction, and that in itself is amazing. It's like, wow, it took off to be here for a weekend.
Mark, I think that what you were saying about the radio station and people still doing that today, people still getting on it with the TV and the online portion of the auction, I really think it has to do with just the convenience of the radio. You can constantly listen to it no matter what, no matter where you're at. And I think that's what this auction and what this panel, our generation, next generation, is trying to do, is continue to change with the society. Because our society, the millennial generation, even our generation growing up, convenience is something that we like. It is something we want. We want things instantly. And it may be a flaw, and some people may see it as a flaw. And it does hurt us at sometimes, but I think with the radio thing in this auction, it is a benefit to the auction, because people our age are constantly listening to things. We're constantly having headphones on, or we're constantly in our cars going somewhere. And I think that's why the radio station is just continuing to be a big part of the auction, is because of that. And I think, what we've learned through, Miss Laura and Miss Melissa, that, we have to continue to change this auction as it continues to go throughout the society. And I think that's why this next generation panel, getting involved now, to learn, the backbones of the auction, to learn the people who have been running it, so we can have that heart and that emotion and, continue to change it in a way that is going to continue to help people.
Well, as we get ready to kind of wrap this up, is there any way, if folks your age want to get involved with the next generation, what's the best way to get in touch or to be a part of that?
Actually, this panel, this year, we're going to try and come up with ways that next year, when the auction comes around, that the Miss Melissa and Miss Laura and a committee can choose people who really have the same passion and the same emotion and heart for those. And so they're actually going to involve us in that, though. They're going to, that's what I think is so great about this, is that the generation before us and the generation before that is seeing, what our generation can do. We don't get lumped in with the millennials. We don't get lumped in with that, that the public relations problem that millennials have. We are our own generation, and we have the ability to change the society and the world around us in our own way. And, I think it's just great that they're seeing that and involving us in, even the selection process for next year. And so I'm sure they're going to release something next year, but it will be a selection process. It will be, a way for them to apply. And but I definitely think that once we figure that all out, though, they're definitely going to get ahead of it, and people will know. And we want a bunch of people to apply. We want to see how this is going to take off.
Well, I'll definitely will say hats off to you guys for stepping up your generation. I've watched it over 41 years now. I've watched the auction. I've all but two, because I just wasn't here yet. But I've watched what you're talking about. I've watched one generation move it to a certain level, and then that generation kind of ages out where they're still a part of it, but not able to just carry the lead. And I've seen 2 or 3 runs of that where you get one group of people, they hand it off to another group of people. They've now handed it off to the current group of people, and, who knows, you guys may be the next ones carrying the torch, 10, 15 years from now. So, that's just the way life goes. One group hands off to the next. And, from my standpoint, I appreciate you guys being willing to be the next torch bearers, if you will, for the St. Jude auction and for Minden. And we appreciate you guys coming by today. And we will definitely be seeing you guys at the auction. So thanks.
Thank you.
All right.